Hello, today we will begin with the explanation of a new chapter. It is related to depreciation. Depreciation is the decrease in value of physical properties as time passes. So when I say depreciation, first of all, I have to know that the assets that I will say that they are depreciable or not has to be used for business. Okay, and this asset has to be used in order to generate some profit, and this asset has to be something that wears out, okay, or becomes obsolete. It's getting used up as you are using it over time, and it shouldn't be something with a life less than a year. I can't say that, for example, the pen I'm using, I'm gonna calculate its depreciation because it usually wears out with a period less than 1 year. So it has to be an asset used for more than 1 year, and it should be wearing out as we use it. So these are the characteristics of or the properties of assets that I'm gonna apply depreciation to it. Now, why are we studying depreciation? Depreciation is not a cash flow, but it affects the company's taxes. How so? Every year in accounting, they do their calculations and they calculate the book value of an asset. What is the book value? You see, let's say in our classroom, aren't we using the data show, the chairs, the board? These are the assets that I'm using in this business, okay? Now, if I bought them this year, they are brand new, and I have to calculate the taxes that I should pay this year. The taxes will be high because this is a brand new asset. What if I have been using those assets for 10 years? The book value of those assets has less or lower value. So can I apply taxes, high taxes on these assets? No, the taxes has to be low because the book value of the assets is being less each year I'm using this asset. Okay, so that's why, knowing this, I calculate the depreciation, how much am I losing of the value of the asset with the book value in order to pay less taxes. So if I want to calculate the book value, it is the cost basis, the original price of the asset minus accumulated depreciation. How much did I lose of the value of this asset? It is the book value of this year. Okay, this is the value of this asset as I will put it in my books for accounting. Now we have this method, which is the modified accelerated cost recovery system. It is the principal method for computing depreciation of properties in engineering projects. We have two types or two systems under this method. We have the general depreciation system, GDS, which is the main system that we're gonna apply, and we have the alternative depreciation system. We will not use this system. Now, using this method is easy. First of all, we have to determine the asset's recovery period. They have classified the assets according to their recovery period. Let's say furniture has a recovery period of 20 years, or this asset may live for a period longer than that. Some assets like electronics, computers, and electronics devices, they have a recovery period, let's say, of 5 to 7 years. So each asset is classified into a certain category regarding the recovery period. So your first step is determining this asset lies under which category, what will be its recovery period. Then the next step is going to this particular recovery period and see what is the period at which I want to get the depreciation for which year. So I'm interested in calculating the depreciation at a certain period. How do I get it? I will get the recovery rate from the table and I will multiply it by the book basis. Let's see, how do we get the recovery rates? This is a table that shows the recovery period. Okay, here we have a category of assets that have a recovery period of 3 years. Some are categorized to have a period of 5, 7, 10, 15, 20. So you just have to know your asset is under which category. If it's under the 7 years period, so I will be looking at this column. Now you'll notice that under each category, here let's say the 3 years, it's 3, so you will have 4 numbers. Okay, here it's 5, then you will have 6 numbers. Always we will have an extra value. Now what do they represent? What does these numbers represent? If you sum up the total of those numbers, you'll see that the total is 1, or the total is 100%. So at this year, at year 5, this asset will be totally depreciated. According to the books, it has no value anymore. Okay? Now here we agreed that this asset lies under the 3 years category. So you assume that this asset will live for 3 years. After 3 years, it will be totally depreciated. Why do I keep an extra year? Because sometimes, let's say this asset might live for 3 years, but sometimes people will continue to use it for an extra year, such as furniture. You say that it lies under the category of 15 years, but maybe you will continue to use it for 20 or 25 years. Okay? So we always get an extra year for usage, for depreciation. Okay? So these are known as the recovery period. Now, for 5 years, we said that you'll have 6 rates. Also here, the summation will be 1, equals to 1. Now, here, when I tell you that, I have an asset that has a recovery period of 5 years, and I want to calculate its depreciation at year 3. So what do? I look at the column related to 5 years, and at year 3, I just look at the intersection, okay? And this is the value that you get. What is this value? It is the value that I'm gonna use to calculate depreciation at year 3. So depreciation at year 3 will be this rate, okay? This recovery rate multiplied by the book value, the cost basis. Now, there's a very important thing to know is that there is an important point to know is that with respect to the GDS and ADS system, there is the half-year convention. Okay, what do you mean by that? This means that if you dispose an asset, let's say you have an asset that has a recovery rate or recovery period of 5 years. Okay, so it should live for 5 years, but we have an extra rate, so we have 6 rates for this assets. Okay, what if you decided to dispose it before the end of its useful life? It has a life of 5 years, so it has 6 rates, but you decided to dispose it at the 3rd year. Okay, so it's not fully depreciated. So in this case, I will have to multiply the value at year 3, the value of the recovery rate that I will get from the table, you'll have to multiply it by half. Because when you say that I'm gonna dispose a certain asset, did you dispose it at the beginning of the year, or at the end of the year, or at 3/4 of the year? So I don't know exactly when did you dispose it. So always we'll take it as a rule that if you dispose a certain asset before fully recovering its periods, this means that if you dispose it at period 3 and it has 6 recovery periods, so you didn't use the full recovery periods found in the table, you'll have to multiply the value that you got for this year by half. So this is a very important rule that you'll have to keep in mind. Let's look at this exercise to be able to understand the idea better. Here we have a firm that purchased and placed in service a new electronic component for $100,000. Okay, so this electronic component, it has the GDS 5 years recovery period. Okay, so I will have to tell you under which period does it lie. So here it lies under the 5 years. We need to determine the depreciation deduction in 4th year. Determine the book value at end of year 4 and the book value at end of year 5 if the component is disposed. Okay, so here I have to apply the rule that we have mentioned. So what is the first step? First of all, you'll have to look at the table. Okay, it lies here under 5 years. So these are the recovery rates that I'm gonna use. This is used for year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is if I decide to use it for an extra year. Now I was asked to calculate depreciation at year 4. Okay, we agreed that depreciation, this is depreciation, and K is the period. I want to calculate depreciation at year 4. So this is what I need to calculate, depreciation at year 4. It is the recovery rate for year 4 multiplied by the cost basis. The cost basis is the original cost, which is the $100,000. So what do I need to get? The rate at year 4. If you go back to the table, you will see that at year 4 it was 0.1152. So this is the rate that I'm gonna get it from the table. So what do? I apply the equation. Depreciation at year 4 is this rate that I got from the table times the cost basis. So the depreciation deduction of this asset at year 4 is 11,520. Okay, this is how, what's the value of depreciation. Now, what will be the book value at year 4? How much did I lose out of depreciation? So the book value is the cost basis, original cost, okay, minus accumulated depreciation. How much did I lose out of the value of this asset each year? So the book value 4 will be the cost basis, 100,000, minus a summation of the depreciation. We said that the depreciation of each year is the rate times the cost basis. So I can take the cost basis because it's going to be multiplied by all the rates of all the previous years. So this is the cost basis, and these are the rates for year 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are the recovery rates that I got from the table for year 1, 2, 3, and 4 because I want to calculate the book value at year 4. So by books, the value of this asset, which had a cost basis of $100,000, its book value became $17,280. Okay? Now, what will be the book value? It's the same step. This is the cost basis minus accumulated depreciation, which is 100,000 times 0.2 plus 100 times 0.32 plus 100 times this rate and so on. So I want to accumulate the depreciation. Now, the only thing that's gonna differ between part B and part C is that here I was disposing the asset. So this was the rate for year 5. What did I do? I multiplied it by half because I was disposing it before the end of its useful life, because we still have an extra rate at year 6. So I didn't use all the rates in the table. So whenever I stop, I'm gonna multiply by half the last rate that I got from the table. So this is how we calculate the book value at different years, whether do I have disposal or not. This is how we solve the exercises.